let's get things started. I'm Catherine White, your big boss today, your badass MC that's going to lead you through the show. And Jacelia Ward is here too to help us through this show. So she's in the room. Glad she's here today. Jalicia, say hi and wave. Awesome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, good announcement. You'll be working with us, I think, on a regular basis. So we're very excited.
Absolutely. And I can't wait.
So this is the Friday Power Lunch, our weekly political gab fest show that we love to all see you come in the room every week. And today we have a great show with some great guests, and we will have some real talk about what happened in the Virginia elections, from the good, the bad, and how we start making constructive change, because we're all in the positive. As you know, we look for solutions. So we'll be getting real today. We have some great guests. I'd love to introduce them. And who better to start out? Marcus Simon, delegate in HD 53. When we talk about getting real, you know what you're talking about when the redistricting maps and what we have to look forward to this year. So how you doing?
Well, you know, it's funny. This is, I was all set with you to give you guys an update on redistricting, and I thought that I had it all pretty well under control and knew where we were. And then we got some big breaking news like about 15 minutes ago.
Don't say it.
Maybe half an hour. It feels like 15 minutes. So let me give you guys the latest, if that's all right.
Wait, would you want to wait and hold it? Because we're going to introduce guests and then you're first up. So hold your secret in your pocket. And we're getting real. So Marcus, I mean, I'm ready. I love breaking news, and you're going to hear it on the Power Lunch. So super. Okay, next up, Atima Omara, political strategist, and also DNC Virginia member. Hi, Atima, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
You ready to get real?
Real as possible.
I love it. That's what we want to hear. We really want to hear the good and the bad, and also your views on that and the change we need to make. So glad to have you in the room, and it's really good to work with you again. So thank you for being here.
Of course.
All right. All righty. And then Caitlin Bennett. How are you, Caitlin? She is the, what's going on?
Wrong.
Oh, we got another Caitlin. It's okay. We'll take this, Caitlin.
Okay.
Caitlin Coakley. Wait a minute. Okay. I love it.
Too many Caitlins. It's a problem already, and we are spelled the same way.
Oh my gosh. Well, we can always unmute yourself, because I want to say hi. You are the chair of the Fredericksburg Democratic Committee, and you're here to give us a big overview of how we can have that constructive change.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I saw you at the bonfire on Sunday. I'm still getting the smoke out of my hair, but we were there to burn it down and build it back better. So that's what we plan to do today a little bit. So thank you, Caitlin. Great to see you. And yeah, let's bring up those badass former candidates, or I'm going to call them our awesome candidates, Jennifer Kitchen and Caitlin Coakley. Hey, ladies.
Hey, y'all.
You ready to get real?
I am always ready to be real.
I know.
I'm not sure I know any other way to be.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, that's why you're a voice of candidates today to really talk. There's really a lot that people don't know, and I'm so excited to share what you guys have done for us to be proud of. When we talk about the good, we've been doing a lot of good, and we a lot to be proud of. So we want to make sure that really comes out strong. So thank you very much. What a great lineup. So let's get down to show business. You know, we do this every week, and you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also become a patron, and we love your support. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you could support our show and our wonderful work. So I don't know if we have any new patrons to announce, but when we do, let's ring the bell, because that's always awesome. And also we have if you want to subscribe to our badass briefings and our Tuesday tidbits, because Stair puts a lot of work into these, and so does Robin. I'm going to tell you, this is an archive that will one day be in a library, just to document what the hell we did, so amazing. And the favorite part of the show is the after chat. We can save that really good deep dive. We'll have some actually special guests that want to show up just to talk about next steps in the after chat, because it's all about finding solutions. Big announcement. We are taking a holiday break. So we have a little special video we put together to remind you when we will be taking the break and when we will be coming back. Wake up. All right, we will be back in the saddle, and it's amazing to think, after a full year, we've decided we will just keep this party rolling. So yeah, 2 weeks, and we'll see you back on December 3rd. We're already lining up our guests for that day, so super awesome. So I'd like to call up the team. Let's do some gratitude around when we talk about the good and our real talk. This team is always bringing some real talk. So I really like to talk about, especially going to Thanksgiving season, about the gratitude from each one of us, how we feel, the gratitude for the grassroots, the recipe for the secret sauce. So let's kick it off with Stair. Stair, give us some real talk, some good talk about what we should feel good about.
We should feel good about, we know the messaging that Democrats deliver, and we need to get out there more and push it. But we've got the secret sauce here. With that.
We got it. All right, Robin, what do we got?
We have fabulous candidates. Many of them reached their win number, but the Republicans did better. But we elevated those candidates. We were behind those candidates in the grassroots, and we will continue to build the bench.
Awesome. And Rosemary, short stop on the show. What do you got? What are you feeling good about, my friend?
Listen, I got to tell you, being with this crew every day is a learning experience. It's not just me. We all learn. We learn together. But way more importantly, we applied our learnings. We got smarter. We got stronger. We got more badass, and we're going to keep doing it.
Ooh, I like it. More cowbell, not more cowbell, but more badass. I love
more
it.
Cowbell, but
More
like a
cowbell.
badass cowbell.
And our co-MC, Jalecia Ward, what are you thinking about?
So listen, if we're talking about gratitude for grassroots, we cannot forget our volunteers. So I'm going to express gratitude today to having the opportunity, all of us having the opportunity to work with volunteers, to uplift, to motivate, to inspire them, and to have them be a part of the significant changes that we're going to see moving forward. So my gratitude today is for grassroots and for volunteers, because we know that is the foundation of underneath all of us. Yes.
Bringing it. Yeah. So thank you. And lastly, so I want to thank you to the ambassador above, Stair Calhoun, Robin Warner, our show wizard, and then our show network anchor, as we love to say, Louisa Borowski, head of the Virginia Grassroots. Sorry. What do you got to say, my friend?
Well, of course, my gratitude goes out to our coalition. We have spent years now building up the coalition up and down the state. And it's not just about coming together at meetings, but it's really also about building community and friendship. It's the relationships that are going to sustain us. And this year, I also want to say that we welcomed allies from DC, from Maryland, from the Boston area, and across the country. So I also want to thank them for all of their support. And I know some of them are in the room today. And lastly, I just want to say the coalition hasn't stopped its work. So we are meeting on Sunday and we're going to be discussing our strategy for this upcoming legislative session. It's going to be a combination of offense and defense, and would love to have you there if you're interested. I'll put the link in the chat.
No, super. And no, it's really important. Sorry. It's really important that when we go into this, that where our team really felt like is that we need to make sure that the grassroots know the good that we did. And some of these things are out of our control. So we're going to learn about that and we're going to make it better because that's what we do. All right. So moving into our guest list now, the meat of the show, let's get into that pumpkin pie and turkey talk with Marcus Simon, who's going to bring it. And with the breaking news. So Marcus, let's get right to it. Now, why it's so important to talk to you. I know we've been trying to get you on the show for weeks, but of course the Redistricting Commission, we knew you were in that, in that discussion with them, so you couldn't come on. This is so important to our election and how we plan. So let's get to it.
Sure thing. Well, so two pieces, I guess, right? So yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. I guess it was late on Wednesday. I went ahead and resigned from the Redistricting Commission formally. On Monday, we missed the final deadline the commission had to draw maps for the House of Delegates, the Senate, and then finally the U.S. House of Representatives. And so there's no more work for the commission to do for a good long while, unless we have to draw remedial maps, which will be months or years down the road. So I went ahead and resigned so that I could be free to participate in the next phase of redistricting, which is now that the commission has been, and we'll talk a little bit about how that came to be a failure, but now that the commission has failed to produce maps, the maps are in the hands of the Supreme Court of Virginia. And they have to do the map drawing. And Democrats will need to be vigilant as this process goes on, as we found out today. So the process for the Supreme Court, the justices aren't going to sit down themselves with pens and papers and maps and start moving precincts around, right? The way that courts typically redistrict is they employ special masters who are officers of the court with specialized mastery, right, of a topic, right? So special skills, and they're going to have these special masters. Typically, you'd actually hire one, but because of the way that this sort of Frankenstein's monster of a redistricting process works, they're going to have to hire, they're supposed to employ two different special masters to work together to draw maps for the House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. And each party was supposed to submit a list of 3 special masters for the justices on the Supreme Court to pick from. And the people that we nominated were supposed to be free of conflicts of interest, have quality and qualifications to act as special masters, which again are officers of the court who are just supposed to carry out these functions. Right. Well, the Republicans nominated one person with whom they had already in September paid $20,000 to act as a consultant for the Senate Republican GOP caucus. One who works and is employed by the National Republican Redistricting Trust, which is their partisan organization on redistricting, and another one who's employed by the Republican caucus in Texas, who's drawn, if you followed anything about redistricting, one of the most egregious, extreme, hyper-partisan redistrictings in the history of gerrymandering in Texas. And those were the 3 nominees that the GOP put forward.
I'm surprised they didn't try for Steve Bannon with that list that you just gave me. Right? But go ahead.
So and I feel a little bit like Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo villain here. And they might have gotten away with it too, if not for the meddling kids, right? But in this case, the meddling kids were Senator Dick Saslaw and Speaker Fillercorn, who wrote a letter and said to the court, it's a letter because there's no real process. This is all brand new. The Supreme Court has never done this before. Nobody knows exactly how to do it or what to do. So they basically wrote a letter saying, hey, are you kidding me? These guys are not at all qualified to be special masters or to serve in this role. So just about an hour or 2 ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, the Supreme Court issued an order, an opinion, stating that the Republicans needed to come up with 3 new names because none of the 3 names that they had submitted came close to passing the smell test. So that's good news for a couple of reasons. One, I think all of us, for a while, some of us for a while, but all of us have to be a little bit nervous about how a Supreme Court that's made up of justices that were almost, a big majority of which were elected by Republican legislators in the past, how they might view this and whether there'd be any kind of partisan lens. And so to get a victory, although frankly, I think it was pretty much a slam dunk. I mean, it wasn't a difficult call for them, and it was a unanimous vote, but it's a good sign, right? That they seem to be following the law. They seem responsive to even what is a fairly obvious conflict of interest, but they're willing to enforce it. They're willing to say to the Republicans, sorry, try again. So that's, I think, reason to be positive, since we're talking about being positive and uplifting, right? I think that's reason to be positive going forward. A little bit of one note of caution, they also told the Democrats that we need to replace one of our initial nominees. And that's because when the Supreme Court actually met and spoke with the nominees and described, because there wasn't a real good description of what the role of the special master would be. There is now in this new order that came out. Mm-hmm. When they described to the three nominees how they expected them to work and what they expected of them, one of our folks said, he said, and you can tell, I'm inferring a little bit, I was talking to the AP reporter, he's like, how do you know he said that? I'm like, I don't know exactly what he said, but I know that the court said that one of the nominees has asserted a condition or reservation that suggests to the court he may not be willing to serve as a special master in accordance with the code section that says the two special masters will work together to develop any plan to be submitted to the court, right? So, I don't know how many of y'all followed our redistricting process, but let me circle this back, because this gets us back to what I think was the real problem with the commission, right? And I've said to folks, I think probably my biggest regret out of the whole commission process was the decision at the very, very beginning. We're supposed to select a chair from among the citizens, right? And Steve Newman called me, and George Barker had me on a conference call, and they called me about like literally a half an hour before the initial meeting and said, we don't know how we're going to pick a citizen commissioner, but we have this idea. Why don't we just do co-chairs, right? Well, we'll took one Democrat, one Republican.
Okay, let me just say, anybody that's ran even on a PTA knows the death of the co-chair. Could I just throw that out there for everybody? Okay, go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, well, so, but again, half an hour out, I think if I were starting all over again, right, with the commission, if we could start all over again, I would have said no. We're not going to do that. We need to decide as a group. How are we going to decide, right? I mean, it's a hard question. Who gets it, right? I would argue, since we have a Democratic governor, a Democratic leadership in the House, Democratic leadership in the Senate, we've got even balance, but let's give us something. Or we could have said, hey, this is the first decision we have to make. We're going to have to hire a lawyer later. We're going to have to hire map drawers later. So we work out a system where we go, all right, we get the chair, you get the lawyer, we get the map drawer, right? But we didn't do that. We split the baby. And it's funny, it's funny, Ryan McDougall, throughout the process, kept saying, we got to find a way to split the baby. We got to find a way to split the baby. I don't know how many of y'all went to some sort of Sunday school or Hebrew school or know that story, but I feel like I need to remind folks that was the wrong answer, right? When someone said, hey, how do I determine who the real mom is? The mom that wanted to cut the baby in half was not the real mom. That was the wrong answer. And yet we continue to try and split the baby on these things. So, we had co-chairs and they alternated back and forth who was going to run the meetings. When we decided to hire a lawyer, I was among the group that included the Democrats that said we should hire one lawyer to give us objective advice, not partisan advice. We lost that vote. We hired Republican and Democratic attorneys. And at that point, we were pretty much doomed, right?
Yes.
Because how do I, as a Democratic elected official, say, well, my lawyer says that I really need to do it this way, but I'm going to ignore the legal advice of the attorney that we hired to represent Democratic interests, and I'm going to go this way instead. And frankly, how can I expect a Republican legislator to do any differently? And I think what you learn is that although and this drives, I'm an attorney by training and by trade, I practice real estate law. When you run into clients, it's a lot of times they'll call you and say, well, what's the right answer? You're a lawyer. Tell me the answer.
Right.
I'm like, well, who's my client? Right? I mean, it depends. Who do I represent? Because I can give you two different right answers depending on who my client is. And
Can I
so
ask you a question real quick? Right.
yeah,
with
of
that?
course. I'm sorry. I've
in
just
that
been
thread?
going on and on. I'm all
No,
excited.
please. I'm sure there's stuff in the chat too, but so even getting to that, do you think it would have made any difference not to have lawmakers on this? I know some of us were like, when you start to have elected on it, and you're just talking about this back and forth, it seems like there's so many of these steps we can go back and just go, well, we should have done this. And so, that was
100%. Look, if we were really starting over, right? I only went back as far as the commission that was created in that first meeting. If you really want to start over, you need to go back to the commission itself, right?
Or 1760 or whenever we started gerrymandering. Yeah, maybe.
But having legislators on the commission, many of us said would be a problem, right? Yes. And for a variety of reasons, it very much was. One, we have to go back and report to, again, as I say, as a part of what I was saying about the lawyer, right? As a Democratic legislator, how do I say I'm ignoring the council? Whereas if I was a citizen who I was not having to go back and answer to voters and other delegates and senators and stuff, then I could say, look, I understood what the lawyer was saying, but that wasn't really what was in our best interest. So, and, so it forced us to be locked into certain positions that are really hard to get away from. It forced us to, incumbent protection. I know some of y'all may have seen the episode. I feel like it was a show, right? The episode where George Barker draws his own district and says, here's how you get me back into my district and away from Chap Peterson, right? But to George, to 100% of his credit, was completely transparent about what he was doing throughout, right? And some people didn't like to see it, but believe me, he was not the only legislator on that commission that was very concerned about what incumbents were being protected, what were being drawn out, and where those lines were going.
Yeah, you guys know best for that. So in our minute to wrap up here, Marcus, process going forward in the sense, we're trying to get ready here for this constructive idea for change. Are we in a holding pattern again? Like when we're starting to look, will we be re-electing these House delegates? Can you, in just like a minute or less, tell us like what we'll be doing and looking for, how we prepare?
So based on the order today, it sounds like the Supreme Court really wants to get to work soon, like Monday or Tuesday of next week, which means, and they've given themselves a 30-day deadline. It really doesn't take that long to draw the maps themselves. The software does most of the work for you. So I think we'll have new maps for all three bodies by the middle of December, certainly before the end of the year. They'll be in place. They'll be immediately challenged, right? People will sue and try and get them set aside. But I think that generally what happens is we go ahead and hold elections. I think we'll hold election. Now, there's the other question of the Paul Goldman lawsuit that's sitting out there.
Right.
Now that Democrats have lost control of the House, will the Attorney General's office say, you know what, maybe we do want to have elections right away in 2022. So that's coming up soon. So I can see us running on new districts as early as 2022. I'd say that there's as good a chance of that as anything else.
Catherine, you're sharing your screen?
Oh, am I? My Scooby-Doo screen? Okay, hold on. Thank you for telling me. I didn't recognize that. Oh, I see down here.
Look at that. Oh, they would have gotten away with it if it weren't for those meddling kids scene, right?
Yeah. Well, no, those meddling kids. That's what I was going to end it. But I didn't realize I was just trying to share my sound, but it shared my screen. So good to know, because that really helps us prepare for any kind of this, like, Scooby-Doo nonsense, as we say, and to get ready. But thank you. It really, really helps us a lot, because we're trying to get ready, and it's so hard to prepare and strategize when we're trying to figure out what really is going to happen, what these maps will look like, and all that, especially for this.
I'll tell you, and I see Josh in the chat. Real quick. We are preparing as if they're going to be, because it'd be foolish not to. We're preparing as if the House is going to be up in 2022 for re-election under new maps. And I think it would serve all of us well to just assume that's the case and be ready for it.
Oh, good. Well, and in fact, too, because Josh will be on. He'll be our first guest on December 3rd. So when we come back from our break, we will be following up with that constitutional stuff that's going on with Paul Goldman and so on, with trying to deal with that issue too. Well, thank you, Marcus. As usual, you bring it. You're good. You're prepared. You understand what you're talking about. You're an awesome delegate. So
I'm blushing. Thank you.
Yeah. I love knocking your doors this session. It was good. I've never done that. So that was a lot of fun. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. So as we say, let's get going. We have to now we're going to have like Atima up. And we're going to do a little bit of quick turkey chat, if you don't mind, Atima, if you'll spend what you're doing for Thanksgiving. And we want to ask people in the chat as we get into Thanksgiving, what are the dishes that you cannot live without on Thanksgiving? And Atima, what's that for you? Like, I know that I love to have the mashed potatoes or the sweet potatoes. What is the dish that you cannot live without?
You know, I definitely like stuffing.
All right.
Like my parents, my mom makes it really flavorful. Like I actually had her on FaceTime last year because we were trying to socially distance for Thanksgiving to like tell me how she did her recipe. So, because I could eat it with turkey, I could eat it alone. Like it's a good, nice carb the way we make it.
I think, everybody has a secret stuffing recipe. And so it kind of gives a good segue into what we're talking about, when you're trying to run an election, the secret stuffing, the secret sauce, the secret whatever. So, of course, I read your article about this election that made Newsweek. And we really love to have your input. And that one was titled, "The Worst Campaign I've Ever Been Involved in. Democrats Blast McAuliffe in Virginia." It was a great article. And I think it really unpacked a lot of this stuff where a lot of us felt that this campaign was hard for us to really insurmountable for us to sort of to do, for us on the ground to do anything about it. But from your perspective, talking all about this, let's talk about the good. Yeah. Let's talk about the bad. Let's talk about what your points are about what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good was that Democratic turnout was high, like across the state, like on both sides of the aisle, like people were very much using, the voting expansion that we got thanks to our Democratic majority in the Virginia General Assembly. And I think when more people have access to the ballot, that is great. And Democrats were in the lead going into Election Day because of that voter expansion. A lot more of our voters are people who work, weird hours. They've got family members to take care of. Having just the flexibility to vote whenever without needing to provide an excuse and like additional witnesses and all of that makes it easier for our folks to vote. So that was great. It aided us coming into Election Day. I would say that turnout was just even still higher. Like it obviously dropped off in comparison to the Republicans. Republicans turned out more. But for us, like in an off-year election, there was actually more participants than in 2017. Yes. That was great. And that means that there is a base there of folks who are still going to turn out in off-year elections. And that is great for us in Virginia as well. And then I'm not thinking of anything else that was just great in general. Those are the two things that sort of jumped to mind. We obviously had great candidates who were running down ballot, especially. And I think that really helped. And I think if I'm going to add it into the good news is that Glenn, while it's absolutely tragic that statewide Republicans won and we lost the GA, we didn't lose it by that much. I counted the votes that we lost by, and it was a total of 1,000 between all of the candidates. It wasn't like any of them were respectively blown out of their seats. No. So that means like we have votes there, right? And we just have to turn them out more. And also that, the Democratic ticket statewide didn't lose by that much. It's less than, I think they're still counting. I want to say like not counting, like votes are in, but I think they're still updating, but it's like less than 65,000 votes. That's not a landslide. There's nothing to be depressed on. Like
somebody like you that's a strategist, you can see right in that, right? You see that the plan to look for those there. When you read that strategy, I'm sure you read that Run article for the Axiom people, how they data jam this and really look for people. So when you are looking, as we know, when we vote, we win. It is about getting those voters out. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like they knew exactly how many people had to pick off there. So in your mind, even like moving forward, I think we had some voters that sat out, were on the sidelines. Reminded me a little bit of the Bernie Hillary thing, where people were a little disillusioned about the top of the ticket, how it all rolled out. And then it was like, well, you know, the Dominion money, the corporate money, the stuff that Tom Perriello said ran in Southern Virginia, they were hammering this Dominion money thing to our voters, depressing their turnout. So in your mind, when you're thinking, so you're saying, do you think there are enough voters on those sidelines to really push up our numbers when we look at this year?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, there is a sentiment amongst, you know, folks who even turned out to vote for us of it has been frustrating to watch, you know, the national level that, you know, we won a trifecta. We have, you know, Democratic dominance in Virginia. We just got infrastructure over the finish line. We're still battling Build Back Better. You know, COVID relief has run out, but it's like, okay, what's going to be like to kind of get us through the winter? You know, we haven't done anything about voting rights nationally. We have in the state, which is great news. God knows what's going to happen on the other side when, you know, the Republicans regain control. But, you know, there are, I think, some questions as to, there are some things we need to do. We don't see Democrats doing them. And while a lot of our NEMs turned out on election day, some of them are like, what's happening? And I wonder if that, for those who didn't turn out, that was playing in their mind. Some also being like, Trump is gone. Things are a little less bad now. Combined with, I mean, it's still a pandemic. More of us are vaccinated, but some of us are still dealing with caregiving and figuring out surviving this and how to see our family safely and all of that. Yeah.
No, really good point. I think especially the exhaustion of people and parents and that people really wanted something more positive. So in the sense of like, we get to maybe didn't do so, we got a little bit into the what we maybe didn't do so well. So, you know, and I one of your comments stuck out to me, that you danced with the people, you know, with the people that brought you to the party. And you did talk a little bit about what you felt about us, the concentration of this white voter, white women. And we did that sort of with the Hillary thing. It was this also similar kind of targeting. And so what's your opinion on that moving forward?
Yeah, I think that our party's never been great about like really micro-targeting and understanding our voters. Like I was just finally had the energy to read sort of the Republican tactics for winning this time around. Finally just made myself read it. And one of the things that was just beautiful, I almost wanted to like weep a little bit just from like a strategist perspective, because, you know, Youngkin's people went in understanding they were going to lose Northern Virginia outright. They were just like, where can we run up the score to get a certain margin? And then we can focus on where we do have votes in Southwest, in South Side, right? And that also applied to really looking at certain demographics. So like, we're not gonna win the Black vote, but what can we peel off? We're not gonna win Asian American voters or Latino voters. They more overwhelmingly vote for Democrats, but where can we pick off? And we'll like, focus on certain communities. Most people say Asian Americans, they don't realize that means South Asians, that means Polynesians, that means East
Filipino,
Asians.
it means everything.
Everything, the different kind of like cultures and politics that are informed by that. Like Black people grew up in like an urban area versus a very rural area, but there are Black people who are farmers whose families have lived for generations in Southside Virginia. The diversity of like military veterans, right? And so it's the same with white women. People have said, it's the same with white women.
It drives me crazy as being a white woman. It's like we all drive minivans, we shop at Marshall's.
Right. And that's certainly not certainly not every white woman I know. And when we're starting to sort of understand where white women voters are, there's some that are saying like, oh, if we talk about abortion, we talk about this, they'll come over and vote Democrat. Not necessarily, right? Like there's, I think of white college educated women, we're seeing the trend showing that if we target white college educated women, they're coming over to the Democratic Party. We just actually have to like message to them. White, non-college educated women, like I swear, I know the very few, like a handful, like small percentage and then go to Southern Virginia who have, white women who are not college educated, who still are Democrat, but they're small percentage compared to our gains and our growth of white college education.
And if there are out there, they're very progressive. So,
yeah.
I mean, I can spend all day talking to you. I know that we have these other candidates coming up, but let's hit some takeaways. And also from a DNC perspective, I getting into this work in 2017, I had this kind of fantasy about the DNC was this big thing that was going to bring all this stuff in. And they really weren't that entity until recently, the last couple of years, they've got more involved. Yeah. And we had a hard time sort of working with the DNC and the grassroots, meaning not a hard time, but just didn't really emerge to be helpful to us and they didn't want to invest in us, right? So from your perspective in the stuff of constructive change and the DNC, what are you seeing? What's your heart telling you right now before I know you haven't had time to deep research?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple things. One, it's I beat this drum all the time, but I do think that, Howard Dean's 50-state strategy, and I know that's something for those who weren't around when Howard Dean was chair, his belief was that we really need to fund state parties and local entities to be able to do the grassroots work on the ground, like help them train the staff, help them hire the organizers and give them the funding and just get out of the way and let them manage, their stuff with additional support or targeting wherever we can help them. Right. And we have that in Virginia. When we went blue, we had regional field directors actually in every region in the state working on behalf of the state party. But when you have somebody who's representing the state party in Southwest Virginia year round and is attending everything and is doing all of that organizing, right, that's useful. That's helpful for us long term. And so I think there are conversations right now in the DNC around how can we kind of go back to supporting those state parties, like, because we're not the only state party that's saying like we need more substantive support. Like there's plenty around the country and states way more competitive than ours. And so that's one. And that they're, and Caitlin will talk about it later, but that we really need to work hand in glove. That did not happen this cycle with our local chairs and making sure they have the efforts, if the support to launch their efforts, because sometimes the campaigns can't get down there because they're cyclical staff, whatever priorities. But if the committees have like all of the resources they need, the lit signs, the surrogates, if it's not the main candidates, and then the support for their delegates and their local elected officials who get training and support, then, we can run up margins in rural and suburban areas, which we may not win, but like that's more in our Democratic vote share overall.
Right. So. And I got to say, thank you so much for being here first off. And I know I can't wait till you just get in a deeper dive and then we'll read your next article for really actually the kind of solutions that we can work together on. Because next up, you've ended perfectly into our next two candidates, basically in deep, in rural areas, have a lot to tell us about it. And I think it's going to be great. And are we ready to bring them up? Jalicia Ward will be doing this segment and we will then maybe have time for our commercial we want to run in a little bit. But let's get right to this unpack with these great candidates. Go for it, friend.
Okay, thank you so much, Catherine, for passing the torch. So welcome, everyone. I am honored to share the floor and to introduce to you two absolutely amazing candidates, former candidates now that I've had the honor to work with, Jennifer Kitchen and Caitlin Coakley. And you can see, you guys, I'm wearing your buttons from your campaign. Throughout your campaign season, I had to go in my box and be like, look, let me represent these ladies, So it's good seeing both of you. I know it's been a journey in both your districts. We're so thankful for both of you running. And you know what? We'll start with you, Jennifer, from HD 25, because I know you're here to help us understand the implications of this year's elections for rural voters and rural candidates. So the floor is yours. Definitely share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I had a nickel for every time I said the word rural this cycle, I'd be able to fund my next campaign. I can't even get it out because you guys know HB 99 is rural, and I ran this year as well. So I've been saying it over and over, and now like my mouth is
I'm like, roar, like
rural. Yeah. So
yeah,
out here in rural Virginia. So I've lived here my whole life. I was very excited to run this campaign and focus so heavily on a community that just is my heart. And we did so well. Going into this, we always knew that our win wouldn't look like Richmond, but we collected so many wins along the way and have made it easier for the next time. Okay, so things that we did, we increased voter turnout. Y'all, we found 4,000 new voters in the Shenandoah Valley, Democrats, okay? Rural Virginians are Democrats too. So that's the big thing that we can show. We showed the effectiveness of relational organizing. We showed the effectiveness of engaging the entire Commonwealth in messaging and talking to our community to craft our message, because one message is not going to reach everyone and impact everyone the way we want. And I think that if we can take anything away from this cycle, messaging. And I'm sure that Caitlin has some things to add in there too.
Absolutely, Caitlin, we know you outperformed in your district by engaging with voters and just your authentic message in general, because you ran your campaign extremely authentic, which is why I was like, yeah, I like her. You guys better vote for her, because I appreciate the authenticity throughout your campaign. So yeah, definitely chime in.
Well, so this race was very different for me because, first of all, I'm based in Chesterfield County, and the District 65 where I was running, it includes actually half of my voters are in suburban Chesterfield. And then the district also encompasses all of Powhatan, Western Goochland, and a couple precincts in Fluvanna. So I had to, if I was looking at trying to find one messaging strategy or one brand, I would have to craft something that would appeal to the suburbanites, that would appeal to, working class people in rural areas. And it came down to the fact that, I was like, all I can do is be myself. All I can do is talk about what I stand for, and they can accept me or don't. And my race was also kind of the underdog race of the Chesterfield County races, because we had HD 27, which was considered a flippable district. We had Katie Sponsler's, the district where Katie Sponsler ran that Kurt Cox had vacated, that was seen as a flippable district. And I was the one that when I told people I'm running in this district, they would all say, oh my God, thank you so much. Like I was admitting to making, like donating an organ or something like that. I mean, it was, people were so grateful because this district was seen as being so impossible. And I got very little kind of establishment support. So all I could do is just go out there and be myself and try to make a personal connection and let people either, they can take me or leave me, but I, wouldn't compromise my values, and we left it all on the field.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I absolutely leave it all out on the field. I think those of us that ran completely authentic campaigns and never compromised an inch, we saw that is what works. People know when you're pretending to be something that you're not. Yes. So why even waste your time? Another thing that we were able to show with my campaign is that rural campaigns can raise money. We raised over $250,000 out here for a rural Virginia. $250,000.
Wow.
But another thing that we showed is that it's not just money that wins elections. So what we've proven is that it takes engagement from everyone, and every part of this state needs to be paid attention to. I'd like to highlight something that Atima said about messaging. And out here, we saw signs, farmers for Youngkin, sportsmen for young. Every single demographic that could be a sign could be made for, a sign existed for, and they were all over the place.
And there's no accountability for that either. Like there's no checks and balances for that. I kept joking that I was going to put up signs that said like Sagittarius for Caitlin Coakley or something like that, just because why not? But you're right, it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And something that we are doing and working on, you know, what are our next steps? What do we do in rural Virginia, and what do we actually do in rural America?
Right. Share with us what's next, because I'm in rural. So what's coming in next?
So what we need to do is realize that the party will be reorganizing, and I know that someone else is talking about this later, reorganizing in Q1. Committees are reorganizing now. If you see a space where your talent can be used, get involved in your committee. No one is coming to save us. We have to be willing to step up and do this work and stay positive. Because we've been here before, and we know that the party is going to be working to build back what we've lost. What we are doing out here in rural Virginia, we have rural ground game. We are going to be doing this important work out here to make sure that rural Virginia, rural America doesn't fall any further behind in the meantime. So we're going to be helping build committees, volunteer base, building our bench for candidates up and down the ballot. We need to make sure that we have people prepared to step into these roles and understand what they're getting into. I know that a lot of first-time candidates had that problem this time. As you step into a role, people say thank you, and then they walk away, and you're left to figure it out on your own. We need to make sure that there's support structure there within the party and organizations like Rural Ground Game to make sure that first-time candidates especially get all of the support that they need. Because we have fantastic candidates.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the reason they lost.
Right.
Okay. We need to engage people, and we need to be sure that all Democrats understand that it's okay when we control the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for us to flip the script, and we need to just make sure that that's what we're doing moving forward. Not letting someone else tell our story.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, that goes two ways. One thing that when the top ticket candidates or when the coordinated campaigns were making decisions that I did not agree with and people asked me about it, I was honest about how I felt. And I got some heat from that. I got some heat for that from other Democrats who felt like I needed to be rah, rah, rah. But I also won over some more moderates because, if we are all, it just emphasized that we local candidates, we are our own people. We're running our own races. We have our own visions for what we want to do and how we want to represent our constituents. Like that is how representative government works. So that was something that, to go back to, your point about authenticity, that is something that got people to trust me, that I was willing to say, I don't agree with some of the decisions that they're making. I mean, respectfully disagree with it. But I wasn't throwing anybody under the bus, but I was honest about how I felt about the way that some of the messaging was being twisted and some of the decisions that were being made. So that was one thing that kind of helped me win over some people too.
Right. And I wish we had more time because we can go over this. Reorganizing, loyalty, honesty, trust is everything that both of you brought to the table. I was inspired by both of you. And I hope that, a setback develops the foundation for a comeback. So I'm looking forward to future endeavors with both you ladies. So thank you so much for joining us. I know you guys were going to bring it to this Real Talk in 2021 because you guys are both real. And hopefully we'll be seeing you guys soon. So just keep up the good work and keep inspiring and motivating others because we need it. Now more than ever, we need it.
Thank you.
We're not going anywhere. We're only getting louder.
Mm-hmm. No, we're getting louder, just getting started.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Jaleesa. That was great. I think we have, really the secret, we have great candidates and there's a lot more that we need to have real talk about. And now it's really like people are saying, what can we do next? So we have a great guest that's going to talk to us, Caitlin Bennett. Welcome, Caitlin. Let's just get right to it because we know looking at the clock, but you don't worry about it. Let's just make sure people know what we're talking about because this is complicated. So let's get at it. the party, how to get involved. And a lot of people are just confused about how to get involved. I look at the structure of the Democratic Party of Virginia and I go that way. So let's get at it. So how can we, moving forward, hearing this good, the bad, the whatever, now it's constructive change. And the part of that really involves the party and how we get involved in it. So go ahead. Let's hear it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So the party is only, and when I talk about the party, I mean the Democratic Party of Virginia is only as strong as the people that make up the party. And so we have a real opportunity coming up. We have something called reorganization, and specifically Central Committee reorganization happening this year. It got pushed back. Typically, it happens every gubernatorial year. But because we had redistricting and we didn't have our maps, it got pushed back to 2022 because we need those new congressional maps in order to fully reorganize. And I know that's a lot to get into, but I just wanted to explain a bit about the party structure, because I'm hearing from a lot of organizers that are not necessarily involved in the party, but frankly, folks that are newly involved in their committees or brand new chairs often have a severe learning curve as to what the structure of the party looks like and how it operates. So I'm going to try to do a very quick Cliff Notes version. I will say that all of this information is available in the Virginia Democrats website. And I'm going to refer to what is called the party plan a lot. I believe I sent that link out to you guys that can be shared into the chat. And I know it's a little hypocritical.
Put up one of the slides, Caitlin, or let us know.
If you want to go ahead and put up that governing body structure slide to begin with. But so I just want to start off by saying that the Democratic Party of Virginia, very technically, if we want to be technical about it, is comprised of, I would describe, 5 major main groups. So you have your local, county, and your city committees, which I'm the chair of my local city committee. Then we have affiliated organizations or caucuses, which can include like the Virginia Young Democrats or the Labor Caucus or the Rural Caucus, for example. And then we have what is called Central Committee. Then we have Steering Committee, and then we have staff. And so those are our 5 major components that make up the Democratic Party of Virginia. So I will just quickly put this out of the way, that your local committees and also these caucuses are fairly independent of the party. We all have to adhere to the party plan, which is our governing bylaws. But there's a lot of independence when it comes to the local committees versus DPVA staff in the central and steering committees. So, and we can talk about the implications of that maybe in our chat after this is all done, but just know that. So the main party structure is, I kind of think of it as an onion of governing bodies. So the main governing body of the party is called the Central Committee. The Central Committee is a governing body which is comprised of 24-person congressional committees. And then you have the Steering Committee, additional electeds, and specific positions that are all laid out in section 4.1 of the party plan. So this committee is the official governing body. It meets quarterly throughout the year, and that's what is going to be reorganizing in the coming year. And so after you have your steering committee, who's in charge of the party when the central committee is not in session quarterly? Well, that is the steering committee. And the steering committee is, could I have the officer structure slide up? Thanks. The steering committee is comprised of the chairs of the congressional committees, the chairs of the affiliate organizations and caucuses that I mentioned, the Virginia members of the DNC, so Atima is one of them, And then the state party officers, which includes the chair of the state party, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. And so who's then in charge of the state party when the steering committee is not in session? Well, in addition to the steering committee, you have an executive committee within the steering committee who are comprised of the state party officers. And then the last critical piece to that, who is running DPVA or the Democratic Party of Virginia on a day-to-day basis, and that is your staff. So your executive director, it's a somewhat small group of a staff, your political director, et cetera. And the chair is kind of the boss of that group, and they're the ones that are running day-to-day operations for the party. So you can think of your central committee, your steering committee as layers of governing bodies. And so what does it mean for potential change or potential opportunities to get involved moving forward? Well, the very first thing that's going to happen is between December and January 15th, all of the local committees, so your county, your city committees, are going to be reorging. And we reorg about every 2 years. So we have 2-year terms. And we vote on completely new membership, and we vote on new leadership. So that includes your chairs, your vice chairs, your treasurer, secretary, et cetera. And I will say that each local committee is different in how they reorg. I can't speak to how Fairfax does it versus, Campbell County. Every committee does it a little differently, but you will be getting soon, you'll hear what's called a call to caucus, and you'll find out what your local committees are doing in terms of their reorganization. That has to be completed by January 15th.
So there's a real opportunity here. So right now we can start getting involved, and we have some deadlines. What I know you said a few things.
Yeah, so the first deadline for committees is that we have to hold our reorganization by January 15th. And so committees, typically it ranges from anywhere by the end of December to the beginning of January when we hold them. My committee, we do it on the second, when we hold our meetings on the second Wednesday of the month. So ours, for example, is going to be that second Wednesday in January. It's when we're going to do our reorg, but every committee is different. And there will be a call to caucus that typically people post. Either they have send it out on their email lists, they'll publish it in the paper, or they'll put it on their website. There's usually a call to caucus with that.
Yes, let me just ask that question. How do you find this out, or how do you hear about it? So
yeah, it's up to the local committees to announce that. So I can't say
right.
That
and how about, this is my question too. Christina Holdman said, how do you get notified? Do you have to be a member of, like, say for instance, do you have to be a member of the party? Do you have to be a card carrying paid member? Like, go to the very beginning for me. I just got started so many years ago, and I finally joined the party. Then I've been really bad at showing up meetings because I'm so busy doing this stuff. So then I got like thrown out of being able to vote, but I'm some member. And then I just give up this caring. I'm like, well, geez, it's just so complicated. But now I want to be able to vote because I want to vote for this chair. Let's just get at it. I want to have some power. So tell me, let's do it. Like, how do we do this?
Sure. So I will tell you that when you get that call to caucus, there's going to be an application to join. Okay. And then what happens is the committees will vote on their membership before they vote on elections for their officers.
Okay.
And like I said, every county, city is a little bit different on how they do their applications. Like, for example, with the Fredericksburg committee, we're pretty chill. We're a pretty chill group with not a lot of drama. We hold usually a holiday party in December, which gives people the opportunity to fill out applications ahead of time. And also people are allowed to turn in their applications on the day of reorg, but every committee is different with their rules on how to submit and what the deadline is. So I can't say to like a blanket statement, because like I said, each committee has a lot of independence in how they're run, as long as it's in keeping with the party plan. And so different committees have like larger committees sometimes have actual slots. Like we say, we have slots for X amount of members. I can tell you, like my committee, we're small. We don't have slots for X amount of members. We just, whoever wants to join can join. But not every committee is like that. So you're just going to have to find that out through the caucus rules.
Right. And then for that structure you show, there's all these other groups like the ones.
Yeah. So yeah, let me quickly get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's going to happen? So after our local committees organize, and after the Supreme Court of Virginia lets us know what the maps are, but in general, during the fourth quarter meeting this December, DPVA is going to lay out a timeline for their central reorganization. So unfortunately, that hasn't quite happened yet, but in the beginning of December, they're going to lay out what that's going to look like. And the first thing that's going to happen after we have our local reorganizations is that we'll get a new call to caucus for convention with the congressional committees. So like I live in the first congressional
right. I'm in the 11, right?
You might live in 11 or whatever your congressional district is. So each for the central committee, there's a 24-member committee makeup that is part of central committee, and the details of that makeup, like there's gender parity, there's certain positions for there's a position for elected, there's positions specific to chairs. All that information is in the party plan if you want to look at that.
Right.
But the point is that there will be a convention, and in order to participate in that convention, you need to be a delegate. So again, you need to be a member of your local committee. Then you need to, and then you need to work on trying to become a delegate. And if you want to run for your congressional committee, you need to have a conversation with your chair. You need to have a conversation with your local delegates, and that's going to be a whole process. And there will be, I know DPVA is going to be putting out informational videos and trainings and things like that I can push to you guys so that you can see it, because I know this is a lot.
This is a lot, but I want to tell people we're just running a couple minutes over, but it's well worth it because I'm finally starting to get it. My brain starts to like fog over. I'm like, okay, but I thank you, because I think what people want to know is like how they do move up, what all these committees mean. And it's
sure.
When I first got started, I remember it felt like so many silos. I'm like, how do we operate?
Right. Yeah.
Stuff done.
Like
I mean, part of it to me is that's the part I'd like to see is, can we make this more effective? So if you want to stay a few minutes in the after chat, that would be great, because I think we'll have some questions. You have a few minutes to stick around?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I just want to quickly finish. The importance of being on central committee is because you are then the official governing body. Even though we only meet quarterly, and yes, it's really the steering committee and really it's the executive committee that makes, that deals with the day-to-day decisions, you would be then helping to vote on who is the next chair, who are the next party of officers. And that's what's critical. And that's what's going to bring either change or move the party in a different direction or stay the same course. That's really what we're talking about here. And so that's why central committee is important. That's why getting part of your local committee is so important. But yeah, that's my spiel.
No, I think
that was a lot. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And I know Atima knows a lot about this too, because she is on steering, not to call her out.
I do think that, I think what we need, and we will have, is just a special, not a Friday power lunch, because we like to just kind of get things going and dig deeper in other places, because it really does take really a whole hour and a half kind of work on this. So we appreciate you coming, Caitlin, and your dedication to this. And it's just really awesome to have you on the power lunch and to get to hang out around the bonfire with you and fry up some marshmallows and talk some shit, as we say. So it was a good time. So good to meet you. So stick around for the after chat. This is where it all happens, as we say. And I want to wish everybody a great holiday break. As we said at the beginning, we will be taking a little break. And then we'll be coming back on December 3rd, right out of the pocket, starting our new season again. Maybe we'll have like a good holiday show as well as when we come out in December. So become a patron of the show. We really need your support. We love it. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, and then stay for the after chat. And thank you to our awesome guests, Marcus Simon, Jennifer Kitchen, Caitlin Coakley, Atima Omara, and Caitlin Bennett, The Caitlin Show. So stick around and we will see you December 3rd, sending lots of love, and it's all about real talk. So let's keep the discussion going.